Good, the clouds are gray, the rain is coming down, which is a good way of representing the sadness that occurred here. Welcome to Pigeon Hill, aka the bloodiest part of the entire Battle of Atlanta. I know maybe the Battle of Atlanta included the burning of Atlanta, but still, Pigeon Hill, literally, little Kennesaw's down there, aka a place with lots of boulders. So they just poured boulders down and murdered everybody here. Now I'm on a little bump in front of Pigeon Hill because it's kind of raining right now, and I don't care if that provides more cover. But here on Pigeon Hill, saw the greatest loss of life, only second to Cheatham Hill, which of course I will be covering in the next video. But on Pigeon Hill, it still has its own story, no matter if it doesn't have a rank of number 1. On Pigeon Hill came a desperate but ill-fated charge of the Union soldiers. Now, actually, I did make a video already about here, but more about what I saw here, basically a tiny pinch of history, but I will be covering all of the history in this video instead of just show around. Now, as you can see, Pigeon Hill is a well-forested area. And if you know anything, forested areas means cover. So as the attack began, something that I messed up on my first video about Pigeon Hill was that the Union was on this side and the Confederates were on that side. That isn't very realistic. In fact, in real life, this entire part was Union territory. Uphill, the high ground was Confederate territory. So when the Union troops received an order from William Tecumseh Sherman, the commanding general of the Army of the Tennessee, the Army of the Cumberland, and all the other armies that were present in this Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, and also the campaign of Atlanta itself, William Tecumseh Sherman ordered for one of the officers who led the Army of the Cumberland, which had the most amount of soldiers, to attack somewhere in the middle, whichever way the officer pleased. Now, there would be 3 choices. The largest mountain here, which is about down there, which is called Big Kennesaw. Then, of course, there was Little Kennesaw, and finally, a small spur now known as Pigeon Hill. Now, they decided to choose Pigeon Hill, as it wouldn't be as hard as Big Kennesaw. I mean, they had just tried to assault Big Kennesaw. That didn't really work that well. I mean, just imagine holding a rifle and walking up the Empire State Building on the wall. That's how hard it was, and now you all know why, that they were not lazy, but instead they were using tactics. So when they charged up the mountain, the wooded terrain held Confederate troops, and the Confederate troops were already fully loaded. They had their cannons ready. They were ready to blast upon hell. Up on Little Kennesaw Mountain, they were ready to push the boulders down onto the Union troops as they marched. Now, as the Union troops marched, the Confederate troops who were signaling if the attack was coming ran back into their positions, and they held. When the Union troops were walking up, they received no fire. Zero fire. They didn't even hear any movement. They made it a bit up, and up, and up. And as they were going up, they felt the eerie silence. There were no Confederates. But that was just what they were thinking. In reality, there were hundreds of Confederate trench lines and fortifications with hundreds of soldiers inside it ready to unleash hell with a new little weapon, aka boulders from up the mountain. As the Union troops marched up and the eerie silence continued, the Union troops started moving off of their standard positions. And instead, what they did was that they scattered. They just walked randomly no matter what they did. They just went up with their guns. And even the officers was like, okay, there's nothing here, don't worry. This paved the way for 48 minutes of unneeded slaughter. I call it the Massacre of Pigeon Hill. Nobody else calls it that. But when they got to the middle of the mountain, they finally had one Manet ball fly straight into one of the commanding officer's chests, point blank. A Confederate soldier came out from his hiding position and ran up. They all thought it was only a few. 5 shots rang out. So they thought that there were only 5 men positioned up on this mountain. So they continued. And then a cannon roared. 15 cannons roared in one time. The cannonballs and the shells hit the Union infantry and destroyed the Union infantry like it was melting butter. Just imagine taking a bomb and putting it inside a big block of melting French butter. You know, it all explodes. Manet balls and other types of ammunitions fly everywhere. Some soldiers even pick up stones, yet the Union soldiers still coming up. According to one soldier, they continued going until it was only a stone's throw from their positions. Then the worst bombardment happened. It wouldn't be the cannons. No. Remember that scene from that movie? I actually do not remember that, but it was basically the adventurer guy running because he stole an artifact and now there's a big ball rolling. Now imagine big crowds of Union soldiers and also mega boulders just rolling down the hill, multiple of them, about like 50 every minute. That is what happened. Up on Little Kennesaw Mountain was known for having its intense amount of boulders, so they pushed it off the cliff. As it rolled down, it did not hit the Confederate positions, and instead, just as they wanted to, hit the Union troops. The Confederate troops on Little Kennesaw continued doing this until the 48 minutes of senseless slaughter was over. It was so terrible that after an hour hadn't even passed, and they immediately retreated. This battle, this small skirmish, although it was ill-fated, shows the determination of the Union troops and also the determination of the Confederate troops. No matter how many times the boulders run down and murdered more Union soldiers, they kept pushing on. No matter how close the Union soldiers were to the Confederate positions, the Confederates did not surrender. Some said that the Confederates fought with such desperation worthy of a better cause. This massacre, as I like to call it, wasn't like any other massacre. It wasn't St. Valentine's Day. Both sides showed great strengths of bravery, yet it only went to one side. But the winner, surprisingly, didn't win the actual war or the battle or anything else. This is the story of Pigeon Hill, a senseless slaughter of hundreds, and it comes up with nearly a third of all the casualties that happened on Kennesaw Mountain. But although Pigeon Hill was very deadly, it did not come anywhere as close to Cheatham Hill, the breaking point for Kennesaw Mountain. And I will be covering that in the next episode.